In this mid-mastery lesson, we will focus on reviewing the key abdominal and pelvic arteries to ensure that they are open with normal blood flow. On a standard portal venous phase CT, you will get a balanced view of the vasculature that includes both major arteries and veins, whereas an examination such as CT angiography obtains images earlier after contrast, which allows you to see even small arterial branches. At times, it can be tough to confidently evaluate the vasculature. Often, CT images have some blurring due to patient motion, and the vessels can be affected by mixing artifact. Mixing artifact occurs when blood with different amounts of contrast mixes together and creates lines or swirls in the vessels, but these limitations do not prevent us from trying. Starting with the arterial anatomy, we can trace the abdominal aorta to its first major branch, the celiac axis, which splits into the common hepatic and splenic arteries. You can often follow these into their distal branches, but such a detailed review is usually reserved for a dedicated CT angiography exam. The next major branch of the abdominal aorta as we head toward the feet is the superior mesenteric artery, or SMA, which supplies the small bowel and right colon. If we look at the sagittal view, we can see the long axis of the abdominal aorta and the close relationship of the origins of the celiac axis slightly curving upwards and the superior mesenteric artery curving downwards to supply the small bowel. This is a helpful view to keep in mind for vascular evaluation. The renal arteries are the next major branch to evaluate. In this coronal image, we can see the right and left renal arteries, as well as a smaller accessory branch on the left. Accessory renal artery branches are common and can be seen in both sides in this case. This axial image allows you to see both the renal artery and an accessory branch on the right side, helping us complete the picture of the arterial anatomy. It is helpful to keep in mind the relationship of the renal veins and arteries, as you will often see them on the same images. Here we can also see portions of the renal veins coursing in front of the renal arteries and joining with the inferior vena cava. The inferior mesenteric artery, or IMA, is a small branch of the mid-abdominal aorta that supplies the left colon. It is a good deal smaller than the SMA, and for this reason it can be hard to see unless you know where to look. On this sagittal image, we can see the relative spacing of the celiac axis and superior and inferior mesenteric arteries as they branch from the abdominal aorta. When looking for the inferior mesenteric artery, locate an anterior branch starting about halfway down the abdominal aorta that is heading down toward the pelvis. Finally, as we reach the end of the aorta at the aortic bifurcation, it splits into the common iliac arteries. The common iliac arteries then split into the internal and external iliac arteries, supplying the pelvis before descending into the upper thighs as the femoral arteries. Let's scroll through this key anatomy to get a sense for how we can efficiently review this important vasculature. We'll start with the distal thoracic aorta in the lower chest, past the diaphragm, to the first major branch, the celiac axis, which splits into the common hepatic and splenic arteries. The next major branch is the superior mesenteric artery, which supplies the small bowel and right colon. Back to the abdominal aorta, the next major branches are the renal arteries supplying the right and left kidneys. Scrolling down a bit more, we find this small branch, which is the inferior mesenteric artery. And finally, the aorta splits at the bifurcation into the common iliac arteries, which further split into the external and internal iliac arteries. And finally, we can follow the external iliac artery into the upper thigh for the femoral branches.
So I hope you liked this video. Absolutely make sure to check out the course this video was taken from and to register for a free trial account which will give you access to selected chapters of the course. If you want to learn how MedMastery can help you become a great clinician, make sure to watch the About MedMastery video. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.